A man who loved birds turned into a super negative force set to punish people for using cell phones. The story begins with a man who is approaching an electric network tower. Hundreds of birds are hovering around him. He climbs up the tower only to hang himself up there. The scene shifts to some robotics engineering students who are visiting a research laboratory to meet the legendary Dr. Vashikaran. They are met by a beautiful girl who is Doctor's assistant named Neela. Soon, Doctor enters the room and meets the students. The students are excited to see the new humanoid robot he made. They urge Doctor to show the robot to them. He gets up and clicks a button in Neela's neck, which then reveals that Neela is the humanoid robot he made. He talks about the most advanced features and characteristics of his robot. The students ask if the robot is similar to the previous humanoid robot Vashikaran invented years ago. Doctor makes it clear that the robot is nothing similar to the previous one, since Neela is a domestic purpose-serving robot. As the students ask, he further mentions that Neela does have feelings. However, they are customizable and controlled. Another student asks if Doctor plans to bring Chitty back, to which he says that science has evolved over the years, and it has always been difficult for people to accept and adopt to the newest advances. However, they did accept it eventually, and one day the world might need Chitty back. As the students head back, a boy was riding the bike and talking over the phone. Just then, his phone is forcefully taken away from his hands and it is floating mid-air. The boy is terrified as he moves on to get his phone back. The screen glitches and a bird is displayed on it. It seems as if the bird is trying to attack him, but instead it flies away, and so does the phone. Soon every other phone is snatched away by an unknown force. People around the city are terrified. The scene shifts to Vashikaran's lab, where he receives a call from his girlfriend Sana. His phone gets snatched mid-conversation, leaving him astounded. The whole situation has disturbed people in and out. The whole administration, including the government officials, are shaken to the very core as complaints keep flooding in. The ministers held an emergency meeting to discuss about the happenings. Vashikaran clarifies that there are no previous cases or phenomenon as such previously. Also, there are no signs of involvement of outside forces like aliens. An official named Indra Bora, the son of previous AIRD chief Mr. Bora, points out that the deed might be the result of a psycho-scientist trying things that should not exist, just like someone tried to develop a humanoid robot before, clearly pointing towards Vashikaran. Doctor further explains that the cell phones started flying away suddenly, but they have not exceeded a certain range of area. The scene shifts to a mobile phone dealer talking to a transport agent to quickly deliver the phones. The man is later killed by these phones. The next morning, police arrive and Vashikaran is here to look around. The evidences suggest his death was caused by cell phones. Back in the lab, he takes out a keypad model phone and calls Sana. He has attached a tracker to the phone to locate the others. Soon, the last phone is also snatched away. Vashikaran tracks the phone and finds that it lost signal at Tirukajukundram. Vashikaran and Neela head over to the place and start searching for the cell phones through electromagnetic radiations. Doctor finds some signal and follows it. However, he stops at an empty place beside a lake. As Neela points out, they see the cell phones hovering over the sky. Neela and Vashikaran are attacked by the cell phones. However, they barely manage to save themselves. Later, a businessman visits the government office to ask them to clear out things quickly so he can continue his work again, or else he might end up with nothing. The scene shifts to a meeting where Vashikaran is trying to explain the whole situation to the higher authorities. He tells them that no human force can possibly defeat them and that they need an invincible force to tackle with the situation. Doctor proposes to bring Chitty back, but he is opposed by an official who seems to disapprove of everything Vashikaran suggests in every possible situation. Just then, the shadow of a huge bird hovering over these tower-building sites is seen. The cell phones, driven by an unknown force, soon engulf the mechanical devices used in the construction and start destructing the sites one by one. The military is unable to handle the force, which is quite more powerful than any human force. The terrified minister hides himself in house, but is ultimately killed. Terrified by the sight, the Home Minister calls Vashikaran to activate Chitty and promises to handle the law enforcement and necessary procedures. While on the other side, Vashikaran is already in the process of fixing and activating Chitty. The scene shifts to people waiting outside a showroom to get new phones. Again, the phones get snatched away and form a bird. The bird creates huge destruction across the city when Chitty is seen making a comeback. The bird engulfs the robot when he manages to get out. A huge clash happens between Chitty and the huge bird made of cell phones. The destruction continues as a huge fight rolls over between the two supernatural entities. The bird leaves the place as Chitty enters a restricted area to retrieve his battery. Dr. Vashikaran wishes to know more about the place, so he contacts an experienced scientist named Sam, who explains that the place is home to the Integral Space Research Center, which is currently inactive. The center was established to send signals to the entities that live outside the solar system, as the scientists supposedly wanted to explore the availability of other entities other than the humans. He also explains that usually evil responses are also received from the outer space. So the scientist created a positive frequency to contact with positive entities out there. With the information, Dr. Vashikaran decodes that the bird was not able to enter the space since it is controlled by an unnatural negative force, which makes it weak when it comes in contact with positive energy. Vashikaran then spots a human-like face in the bird's body and suspects that the force is indeed earthly, does not have any contact with life outside the solar system. He then asks Neela to derive information about anyone who committed self-harm or recent accounts of death from Tirukajukundram. Dr. Vashikaran then starts creating a similar model that was made inside the research center to emit positive frequencies. Chitty explains Neela that the doctor is set to destroy the negative aura behind the force controlling these cell phones. Neela shares the details about deaths in the Tirukajukundram area. Vashikaran points out a suicide case where the man hanged himself in a cell phone tower, which we saw in the first scene of the film. He also points out that after the death of the man on 7th of April, the cell phones started disappearing. He connects all the dots and is now aware of the whole situation. Vashikaran orders Chitty to install the power source to their vehicle so they can immediately head off to Tirukajukundram. Dr. Vashikaran, Neela, and Chitty reach the place where Chitty is exploring the area. He enters a house and scans throughout the place searching for traces of electromagnetic radiation. As he reaches the backside of the house, he finds all the cell phones lying there. The vehicle is then taken to that particular place so they can activate the positive frequency. As the photon synthesizer starts working, the cell phones rise to the pattern of a bird again, which is distraught by the positive frequency emitted by the model. Chitty supports the vehicles from falling down as a huge power clash is seen. The huge entity tries to stop the flow of frequency, but Chitty keeps protecting it from doing so. As the cell phones fall down, a group of cell phones start making a pattern of a man. The mysterious entity marches towards Chitty as he is left astounded by the scene. A human face is seen, and Dr. Vashikaran recognizes him as Paksharajan. As most of the entity's negative power is neutralized by the device, the synthesizer needs to recharge. Paksharajan's body remains weaker. The entity moves forward to destroy the photon synthesizer when Chitty stops him. Paksharajan then shows his story. He reveals himself in his human form, and then the story turns to the past, where Paksharajan is seen teaching his students about different birds and their habitats. As a student asked when his interest had sparked in birds, he tells a story about his childhood. When he was born, he did not respond for a long time, and the doctors declared him dead. He was brought back to life by a bird poking his beak on his chest. As he grew up, he was always surrounded by birds, specifically one which made nest in his room. He became an ornithologist and a renowned professor of ornithology. He has always focused on how birds are important for the ecosystem. As some students ask him about the extinction of birds and the minimization of the number of hibernating birds in all areas, he is disappointed and disturbed by the grave reality. Later, he presents a thesis on the situation and explains that the situation is caused by increasing usage of mechanical devices like cell phones and high radiation levels. He proposes that people should minimize the usage of cell phones as it causes higher levels of radiation. There must be a law to put control over the usage of mobile phones. Along with some people, he protests for the life of these birds outside the Network Towers Management Company. He is thrown out of companies and government institutions when he asks for answers and regulations. Later, he notices some people are constructing a network tower in his area, so he gets out to stop them. Paksharajan tries convincing others, but nothing seems to work. He further continues protesting, but the efforts go in vain. As the scene progresses, he is emotionally struck by the birds dying around him. He digs up small holes in the soil, puts their dead bodies in it, and places a flower over it. He further tries to convince government officials to put restrictions on excessive cell phone usage and cancel licenses of companies that are using high frequencies. He then initiates a case against network companies, but these companies outsmart him by minimizing the frequencies when the court officials record the frequency rates. Hence, his case closed, since he has no evidence against these companies. As he is defeated from every situation, he hangs himself. His aura separates from his body and calls for the birds who died in his backyard. The scene shifts to the present, where Chitty argues that even if his situation and his arguments were totally correct, it is unethical for him to kill humans. However, Pakshirajan is stuck in his opinion that humans don't deserve consideration after killing these millions of innocent birds. As the photon synthesizer is activated again, positive frequencies start neutralizing the negative source again. Pakshirajan starts destroying the vehicle, but Chitty stops him, so instead he attacks Chitty. Chitty's MPU is damaged, so Neela heads over to fix him by putting her MPU inside Chitty. Chitty wakes up and saves the vehicle from falling again. The process of neutralization is complete, and the negative power source is stored inside a device. Back in the lab, Chitty fixes Neela but accidentally places his MPU inside her. In a commemoration ceremony, Vashikaran explains the science behind positive and negative auras and spirits of a human body, and thanks Chitty for his help in defeating the huge negative force. Moreover, the Home Minister announces that the Indian government has surpassed the permission to release Chitty and has urged the scientists to create 500 models of robots like Chitty. The manufacturing of the robots has initiated. However, on the other side, Indra Bora is on a mission to steal the device which has stored Pakshirajan. The scene shifts to Vashikaran's house, where he is met by Pakshirajan. He is now under the control of Pakshirajan as he strolls around the streets protesting to save birds. He attacks people around him and causes a huge havoc. Chitty and Neela reach the place with the neutralizer and are met with Pakshirajan, who has taken control over Vashikaran's body. Pakshirajan threatens him that once Chitty tries to neutralize him again, Vashikaran will also lose himself. Neela turns on the neutralizer, but Chitty destroys the device. Pakshirajan dismembers Chitty and Vashikaran is left shattered. Pakshirajan continues destroying the city. Neela is now on a mission to fix Chitty as she breaks into the evidence archives office to secure the 2.0 chip. She fixes a dismembered Chitty and installs the 2.0 chip. The installation is successful, and then a brand new quirky version of Chitty is shown. For the next step, Chitty starts activating the newest robots and making them ready for the great battle coming forward. He also creates several mini versions of him named 3.0. The scene shifts to a football ground where a match is going on and people are enjoying it. Pakshirajan enters the ground and snatches the phones. He further warns them that they are going to die under the influence of radiation, just like the birds did. Out of the crowd, he points out Indra Bora to give everyone a small demo of what will happen to everyone there. Indra gets defensive and says that he is the one who freed him and that he should leave him. But Pakshirajan denies, saying he was also one of those contributing to the disaster. He throws off Indra to the middle of the stadium and charges radiation at him. He soon turns into ashes as people see him die. Everyone is terrified. People try to leave, but Pakshirajan blocks all the ways. Chitty enters the ground and warns Pakshirajan, who then tries to threaten him by turning into Vashikaran, but it does not work. A huge clash begins between Pakshirajan and Chitty. People are terrified, yet hope for a release while a fierce fight continues. Pakshirajan starts crushing over the robots and destroy them. Chitty is defeated as he has no power left. Pakshirajan attacks him, but is stopped by a mini Chitty who arrives. The place climbed up on top of a bird. Several mini versions of the robots are here riding birds. Pakshirajan is shattered, and he stops for a moment. He stops the process of destroying the city with radiation as he is threatened by Mini Chitty, who says that if Pakshirajan does not stop right there, he will definitely kill all the birds. The Mini Chitties stick to the walls blocked by cell phones. Chitty soon blasts all these robots, opening the gates for people to escape. Pakshirajan leaves Vashikaran's body, and Neela transfer him to a hospital. Back to the stadium, Chitty threatens Pakshirajan again and he stops. Chitty asks him to follow and take him near the photon synthesizer device, where Pakshirajan's negative powers are neutralized. The scene shifts to the hospital where Dr. Vashikaran explains that technology is indeed a huge driving force for the world. However, it must be used for goodwill, not for destruction. He suggests that whatever Pakshirajan said was not entirely wrong, and that the government should take steps to minimize radiation levels. The film ends on a good note, where Chitty asks for Vashikaran's permission to present the robots before the government